Brought to you by Kina Pharma and Gold Coast Travel and Tours.
The domestic violence bill was just a natural progression of all the work that has been done, particularly after 1995. It isn't a new thing. So I'm very surprised to hear when people say that it's just a few men. Maybe it's because they hear, our voices. But to tell you the truth, if you were to go to many, many other parts of this country apart from Accra, you would hear chiefs, men, boys, women, and children talk about their experiences if you ask them. And some of these things have been well documented, and nobody is making them up.
We need more harmony in the home. So let us not create laws that will seem to punish a man and only take care of the woman. The men are also suffering in a traditional situation, and we need to upgrade the traditional situation with the men also considered.
Today we draw the curtains close on the debate and discussions on the domestic violence bill. Welcome to It's Not the News. The domestic violence bill has generated passionate debate across the socio-political climate of our nation. That the bill is of essence is no news, yet some knotty points still remain untied. Angela Dwamina-Boadjeh of the ARC Foundation and Kwabena Ofori-Panin of the Living Education Aid will give us their different perspectives and interpretations in the final debate on the domestic violence bill when we come back.
Holidays, holidays. Celebrate this holiday with your holiday airline Britannia Airways special offer. Accra-London-Accra ticket now sells at a reduced price of just $550 payable in CDs. Buy this ticket and get all these for free. One night accommodation in London, transport from London to Gatwick and back, a city tour of London, and lots more. For reservations, contact Gold Coast Travel and Tours on telephone 0212422226, 0277705567 and 8.
At the first sign of cold and flu symptoms, reach for Coldex Day and Night capsules. Coldex Day and Night capsule is scientifically formulated for adults and children. 2 yellow capsules for adults and 1 for children in the morning, afternoon and evening. 2 blue and white capsules for adults and 1 for children before bed. Relieving symptoms such as unpleasant day coughs, stuffy nose, nasal congestion, pain and feverishness. Coldex Day and Night capsules gives you the right dose always. Coldex Day and Night capsule sets you free from cough, cold, flu, fever, and general body pains, and is made in Ghana by Kina Pharma Limited.
Angela Dwamina-Boadjeh of the ARC Foundation robustly argues that the domestic violence bill seeks to plug the apparent inconsistencies in the criminal code.
The Criminal Code of Ghana was actually enacted in 1960. Since then, it has seen several amendments, some of which have also been amendments around sexual offenses, amendments around certain traditional practices that are inimical to the well-being of persons, be they women or men, and so on and so forth. However, you would find that the criminal code does not address psychological violence, it does not address economic violence, it doesn't address social kinds of violence, and very few of our cultural and traditional practices that are inimical to the health and well-being of persons, be they men, women, or children, are captured by the code. And so it is very, very important for people to know that we do have a legislative framework that is weak. Several cases come up here at Waju at different sites. And when they come, you know you are helpless because there is no legal provision that will take care of a case of that nature. Or the legal provision at best is weak. It can't cover the dimensions of the crime that you're seeing. And we must be mindful of the fact that assault is criminal. And it doesn't matter where it happens, whether it happens at home or outside the home. However, when assault is accompanied by, a series of verbal and psychological abuse, a series of words, that make you feel demeaned, that make you feel as if you are not a human being. I mean, let's cast our minds back to the time when all of us were, sort of wishing apartheid away, and how it made us feel to be black. Just because you are black, and people should start thinking about the way victims feel because they are subjected to certain kinds of abuse because of their sex. Why do we want Section 42J repealed? It is totally outdated. The issue is that of having a provision in our law that was foreign. Section 42G, which specifically, I won't say specifically, I'm trying to make it as not as illegal as possible, says that once you and I are married to each other, we have signed away our right to say no to having force applied against us. I mean, in today's world, how on earth can we contain such a piece of legislation and call ourselves a democratic country with the rule of law and tout ourselves to be so progressive? Section 42G was left to us by the British. In their law, right from 16th century, there was a Law Chief Justice called Matthew Hale, who had all sorts of ideas about the position and the status of women in England or in Britain in those days. And he came up with the principle that a man cannot be said to have raped his wife because his wife signs away her consent to be raped once she says, I do. Now, this is 2004 Ghana. And we are saying what Matthew Hale said in the 17th century, 16th and 17th should hold. It just doesn't make sense. And we must realize that it goes even beyond the issue of sexual assault in marriage or whatever you want to call it. If you beat me up, if that provision is properly interpreted, it means that I have signed away my consent to you. So I can beat you up and you can beat me up. If you really want to understand that provision, what we are saying doesn't mean that, and now wives have to go on their knees and beg their husband, please husband, I want to have sex with you, so will you have sex with me? Or vice versa. Not at all. In a marriage that is one based on equality of respect, of dignity and worth, seeing the other partner like yourself, these things will not arise. Because even before the act of sex takes place, that atmosphere, that environment is already created for, the act to take place. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to bring flowers or bring candles. Not at all. Because you understand each other and you treat each other with respect. But if there's a problem and it's not resolved and you think that, you have a right to force your way to defile another person's body, to violate that person's sexual integrity and space, then we should think again. Sometimes I think people just equate, and that to me is trivializing the issue, saying that, my husband, I have a headache or something like that, and that's the kind of thing we are talking about. I have a headache, and so let's see whether we can make it another time or something like that. And that means that, so all dialogue is closed. No, not at all. All we are saying is that there are women who are suffering violations. And according to the interpretation of the law as left by the British, who are foreign, not us, you can't be said to have raped somebody within marriage, no matter how it looks. And that is what is problematic to us. So people, we should try and distinguish between this and a scenario of rape, between the situation where people are saying, are we saying we are revoking consent or we are not revoking consent? They are two entirely different situations. The domestic violence bill is just making it possible for people to take the extra step of seeking specific protection for themselves. And that is why it contains provisions on protection orders. It contains provisions where the court can order for social inquiry reports and psychological reports from experts, apart from medical reports. It also talks about court-supervised alternative dispute resolution, which is, of course, an answer to some of the things that critics say, that, you know, women will just start trooping to the police stations to jail their husbands. It will interest you to know, for example, that statistics have shown that before a woman steps out to report formally to an agency, she would have passed through the situation of battering 35 times. That is the average statistics. Is that not frightening enough? We have the Commission on Human Rights in all the 10 regions. We have a number of districts with the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. I don't know the exact figure, but I know it's certainly more than 50% of the districts here. That commission is mandated to also investigate cases of human rights abuses, and violence is part of the issue about regarding human rights. We have districts, departments of social welfare in every district in Ghana. Yes, they may be weak, but they are there with a little capacity, as we build capacity in any other organization when we are committed to do something with a particular sector. A little beefing up, a little support. Those district departments of social welfare, which is critical actually to the operationalizing of this piece of legislation, are there. Not only that, we have district courts in many regions in this country, which also have the mandate to see to the prosecutions of these issues, or even take up the civil aspects of the issues under violence too. Those courts have been in existence way from before my father was born. We also have some civil society organizations that are running projects in several parts of this country. And many of them have actually gone through some form of capacity building that enables them to give basic first-line responses to victims of violence. So if we say we have nothing, I have a problem with it. It may not be adequate, but I can't remember one law in this country that has been passed where every structure is in place, all the infrastructure, the personnel. I don't remember, so I don't want us to treat this particular bill any differently. If we have the commitment, we will use existing structures, build a coordinated system of response at district level, at community level, so that people would know that they don't have to suffer in silence. Even if they are still in that situation, they know that they can keep safe, depending on what you're able to tell them.
Question is, did Angela succeed in convincing you that the criminal code is weak and therefore inconsistent, which requires an interventionist bill like the domestic violence bill? Additionally, if there are perceived inconsistencies in the criminal code, why haven't succeeding governments found it prudent to amend or repeal sections of it?
Holidays, holidays, holidays. Celebrate this holiday with your holiday airline Britannia Airways special offer. Accra London Accra ticket now sells at a reduced price of just $550 payable in CDs. Buy this ticket and get all these for free. 1 night accommodation in London, transport from London to Gatwick and back, a city tour of London, and lots more. For reservations, contact Gold Coast Travel and Tours on telephone 021242226, 02777055667 and 8.
At the first sign of cold and flu symptoms, reach for Coldex Day and Night capsules. Coldex Day and Night capsule is scientifically formulated for adults and children. 2 yellow capsules for adults and 1 for children in the morning, afternoon and evening. 2 blue and white capsules for adults and 1 for children before bed. relieving symptoms such as unpleasant day coughs, stuffy nose, nasal congestion, pain and feverishness. Coldex Day and Night Capsules gives you the right dose always. Coldex Day and Night Capsule sets you free from cough, cold, flu, fever and general body pains and is made in Ghana by Kinder Pharma Limited.
Ofori-Panin of Living Education Aid makes a sober and reflective defense of the role of the man within our traditional society as a counter to the legalistic stand of Angela.
We have to look at the relationship at home, because charity begins at home. And if it is so, then how is the home setting going to help the society in general and the nation at large, and even beyond that? That is why it is important. Now, it takes the man and the woman to have a child. And the child in addition to the man and the woman, will become the family at home. So we have to let them all have their peace of mind and stay in their home. And we have a better upbringing for the child, so that he grows to be a good man in the future. So this domestic violence bill, which is trying to set the home at peace, let's put it that way, is unfortunately one-sided in favor of the women. And I think that is not right. What they seek to, or the domestic violence bill seek to address is that all along, what is being done in relation to violence with the law is not adequate. And we are saying then, why not? They are saying that the domestic setting is different from the other situations with violence. We have to understand that we cannot have laws for all the different situations in life. If you are asking for domestic violence or violence in the home, do you have to have another law for violence in the church, another set of laws for violence in the school, or in the, let's say, lorry station, or at workplace? Maybe that will not be necessary. So let us look at simplifying the law so that the general citizenry can understand the law and apply, because it is for them that the laws are drawn, not for the lawyers and the judges alone. So let us simplify the laws. For that reason, I say the domestic violence law may be superfluous and may not be very necessary. So I don't support that we need to create another set of laws for the domestic situation. And like I hinted before, the domestic situation is technically the whole culture, because in Africa or in Ghana, our lifestyle and our official and domestic lifestyle are so interrelated, they are integrated, that we don't have a separation. And so if you actually talk about the domestic situation, we are talking about the whole lifestyle of the family. So let us be careful how we discuss this and be fair about it. Let's look at the family again. If we are concerned about the child, why do you think the child should be pushed to the side of the woman alone, and the man also at the other end, as if they are in an antagonistic situation? How is that going to help the upbringing of the child? I don't think it will help. It is important to understand also that a marriage thrives on love rather than laws. And love is not law-friendly. It is not something that you set the bounds and things like that. So you have to allow love to take care of marriage. It's understanding and cooperation, collaboration. That is the very basis of love, but not, you've done this, I'm going to punish you, you've done this, and you have to pay for this and all that. That is not the interpretation of love. So you must be careful about that. It is also important, I want to be a little religious here, but we will know that sometime in life, there will be a time that, as I said somewhere, we will beat our swords into plowshare. And this could be interpreted that we will move from law and intimidation to love and consideration. So this is about the time that we have to consider this. It is time we move on. How do you say somebody has forced somebody to have sex with? The person who is, this time the woman, who is to be forced. How did the woman resist the force? I have given this example before, and maybe I will quote it here, that If it were to be maybe a blade that is being used on the woman to cut her or something instead of the sexual act, do you think the woman will keep quiet as maybe they do when it's this sexual rape thing? No. She will shout, you struggle with all her body and resist it for her life. So why not do that in this case where you think he's being forced to go have a sexual encounter with the man? It is also important to understand that laws, if they are made for the human beings and not human beings for the laws, then laws should take into consideration the cultural setting of the people that the laws are for. In our cultural setting, we have a situation where men are supposed to propose to the women in a love relationship, in marriage. Any woman who does that is considered cheap. And if we take it further, even in a sexual affair, if the woman gives in easily to a man, they're still considered cheap by our cultural definition of the word. So it is very natural for women to resist men when it comes to their sexual affair. And what will be the criteria for determining whether I have reached the bounds or I have reached the real no area of the sexual agreement? If there must be something that we will serve as an indicator, then it is that we educate ourselves, both the men and the women, so that we all understand it. But it's very unfair for the woman to give in or maybe say that at the end of the intercourse that I have been raped, and then the man goes in for 25 years or 20 years and above just because he didn't understand whether the no was real no or maybe the woman was playing hard to get. We as a people, we need to change. I believe that the culture doesn't have to be static. It must change, so it must move on. It must be dynamic. But definitely, because our education system set us to learn more about our colonial masters and their culture, definitely the change we are looking at is a change that is from the colonial culture. So definitely there's an element of importation from the European or Western culture. But how much of it is another debatable issue. But definitely, what I believe is tradition does not happen overnight. So if you want to change tradition, we don't have to push it so fast that we want to do it in a short time as we are planning to do. We must take care and let it go slowly so that everybody will be part of it, understand it, and then we actually have a sustainable change that will benefit us all. Not just a few people who are trying to please maybe some other culture, and almost because the other culture is funding such campaigns or so, then they are pushing the agenda. We have to be very careful. We have very beautiful things in our culture that we have to develop. And this is what you also have to look at. And if we are developing the culture, then we need all on board. So this domestic violence bill should be all-inclusive, if even it should be passed into law.
Ms. Ofori-Panin describes the entire crusading by the gender advocates as parochial and one-sided, heavily tilted in favor of women. Would you also accept his gradualist approach in changing traditional and customary systems vis-a-vis his description of the processes in the enactment of the bill as hasty?
Celebrate this holiday with your holiday airline Britannia Airways special offer. Accra London Accra ticket now sells at a reduced price of just $550 payable in CDs. Buy this ticket and get all these for free. One night accommodation in London, transport from London to Gatwick and back, a city tour of London and lots more. For reservations, contact Gold Coast Travel and Tours on telephone 021242226, 02777055667 and 8.
The new Executive Theatre, your most exclusive movie joint, just got even better. It now offers an ideal venue for your conferences, seminars, and product launches. With an in-house slide telejector, a comfortable waiting room, and a secure car park, all for your convenience. The new Executive Theatre, now your one-stop venue.
What's not the news is that it was apparent from Angela's support for the bill that women are incapable of violence in the domestic domain. Do you beg to differ in any way? It's an acceptable fact that people should not be made to suffer in silence. But is the domestic violence bill, with all its concomitant implications for families, the panacea? In your own view as a responsible citizen, what are your perceptions against the supposed rising incidents of violence in the home? It's not the news to conclude that violence, irrespective of wherever, whenever, and however it occurs, should be abhorred, condemned, and rejected. Does the domestic violence bill usurp our time-tested, valuable, and respected traditional family conflict resolution mechanisms? Dignity and respect for the human person should be the news because marriage thrives on love rather than laws, and love is not law-friendly. Granting that love is imperative for any marriage to work, should forced intercourse or marital rape be an issue that has polarized debate and discussions on the domestic violence bill? With love being imperative in a marriage, so is donor support indispensable in our national development, thus causing a perennial dependency syndrome. Join me next Sunday at 12:30 p.m. for an in-depth analysis of the syndrome of donor support on It's Not the News.
This program was brought to you by Kina Pharma and Gold Coast Travel and Tours.